As the August 1st trade talk deadline approaches, Canada has both accelerated negotiations with the United States and expanded its international trade diversification beyond the southern border. In the past 48 hours, 3 major developments have emerged, which we'll cover in this video. First, we'll examine the U.S. administration's description of Canada as mean and nasty, a comment that provoked swift reactions from Canadian politicians. Second, we'll review the opening of the First Ministers' meeting where dollar-for-dollar retaliation again surfaced alongside other key agenda items. Finally, we'll explore the landmark infrastructure agreement signed by 3 provinces to build new pipelines north and west, enabling oil and gas exports beyond the U.S., along with the Trump administration's strong condemnation of that project. U.S. Ambassador to Canada, Peter Hoekstra, stirred fresh controversy this week at the Pacific Northwest Economic Region Summit in Bellevue, Washington, when he was asked how to coax tourists back across the border for next year's FIFA World Cup matches in Vancouver and Seattle. "Canadians stay home, that's their business," Hoekstra said. "I don't like it, but if that's what they want to do, it's fine. You want to ban American alcohol? That's fine, doesn't necessarily send real positive signals in terms of treating us well." There are reasons why the president and some of his team refer to Canada as being mean and nasty to deal with. Premier David Eby fired back on CBC's Power and Politics, arguing that Hoekstra's comments expose a lack of understanding at the highest levels of U.S. government. The ambassador specifically said that Canadians were mean and nasty for not buying American alcohol and for boycotting U.S. travel, Eby said. Do they think Canadians are not going to respond when the president threatens to turn us into the 51st state and beggar us economically? Obviously, Canadians are outraged. Stick with it, hold the line. Eby reminded viewers that ordinary travelers must declare duty-free limits at the border, unlike Hoekstra, who crosses on a diplomatic passport, underscoring that everyone who crosses that border knows that those border officers do check trunks. Premier Eby also took to X to condemn the remarks from south of the border, stating, "No matter what Trump's ambassador says, Canadians aren't mean and nasty for choosing to buy Canadian and travel locally. We're taking a stand against Trump's threats to our sovereignty and standing on our own 2 feet. Let's hold the line." Meanwhile, a delegation of Democratic senators in Ottawa took a markedly friendlier tone, even sporting friendship bracelets from the U.S. Embassy, as they urged Canadians to return. "To our friends and neighbors in Canada, the Granite State sends you our greetings and says we miss you," said Senator Maggie Hassan of New Hampshire, noting that Canadians make up 30% of Nevada's international tourism. "We hope you will come back. Your business is missed, but more so your friendship." During today's First Ministers' meeting, the Canadian government offered its first response to the recent developments around tariffs. "Our senior ministers, my chief of staff, myself, were engaged in continuous discussions," he said, adding that Mr. LeBlanc will be reinforcing those discussions over the next few days in Washington with the United States. He stressed Canada's insistence on securing the best deal for Canada, noting that in a shifting global environment, some countries are pulling back, but there's even more that are opening up to market access. The Prime Minister celebrated the recent proliferation of interprovincial free trade agreements, a flurry of additional activity, he called it, led by premiers from coast to coast. "This web of free trade agreements is significant for our country. It's what Canadians want," he said, noting that the federal government has moved to remove all federal impediments to free trade. "We felt it's critical that we get out of the way of Canadians being able to work where they want and to buy what they want. Ultimately," he concluded, "Canadians can be our own best customer, and by doing so, we can give ourselves far more than anyone else can take away and control our destiny together and build." After the Prime Minister's remarks, Doug Ford turned to U.S. trade, declaring, "I'll always have the Prime Minister's back when dealing with President Trump. We all know he can say one thing one day and be on Fox News the next, changing everything." Ford emphasized Canada's position as America's largest customer, pointing out that we buy more products from Canada than China, Japan, the UK, France combined. Yet, he warned, when President Trump goes out there and says, "I don't need Canada," he needs to remember that we are indispensable. Citing Ontario's vast resources, from high-grade nickel and grade aluminium from Quebec to uranium and the countless widgets, Ford argued that If Ontario were a standalone country, we'd be the U.S.'s third largest trading partner in the world. On the prospect of U.S. tariffs, Ford advocated a hard line. He increases tariffs. This is my personal opinion. I don't speak on behalf of COF. We need to match tariff by tariff, dollar for dollar, and hit them back as hard as we possibly can. There's one thing President Trump understands, he said, strength. He doesn't understand or appreciate weakness. He will roll over us like a cement roller if you show an ounce of weakness. Finally, Premier Ford announced Ontario's own support measures. We're putting $11 billion to support businesses, communities, people's jobs, industries, especially steel and aluminum. He decried the absurdity of shipping tin cans all the way out to California and shipping them all the way back, promising instead to bring companies to manufacture and print the cans right here at home. We don't have to take a back seat to anyone in the world, Ford concluded, and we sure the heck don't have to take a back seat to President Trump. Before the meeting with PM Carney, the Canadian premiers have presented a united front against the United States and its tariffs. Ontario Premier Doug Ford, flanked by Alberta's Danielle Smith and Saskatchewan's Scott Moe, inked a memorandum of understanding in Huntsville to advance pipelines and pathways to boost exports of homegrown energy, potash, critical minerals and agricultural products to markets across Canada and across the world. Ford set the tone. When Ontario, Alberta, Saskatchewan come together, we're not just signing a piece of paper, we're sending a clear message. Canada is ready to build, and we're going to get it done as one team Canada. He promised that every shovel in the ground would use great Ontario-made and Saskatchewan-made steel, creating jobs, attracting investment and unlocking honestly the full potential of our economy. In a candid aside, Ford stressed his appreciation for America's people and politicians, even as he criticized overreach by United States governors. He said, "I love the Americans, by the way. I love the people, love the elected officials, except one." When pressed, Ford clarified the sole outlier in his affection: President Trump's trade tactics. His point was clear. Canadians cherish ties with the United States but won't abide political edicts that threaten their energy lifelines. Turning to Ottawa, Ford demanded repeal of what he calls bad laws that have harmed Canada's ability to grow, naming Bill C-69, the emissions cap, the tanker ban, and net zero mandates. If Prime Minister Carney doesn't want to work with us, he'll have to contend with me. I've said I'll be all over him like an 800-pound gorilla. We shouldn't allow that to happen to us as Canadians, to be reliant on another country, whether for the production of our energy or accessing that energy through pipelines. We need Canadian access through a line to Eastern Canada refineries for our own energy security. He argued that new west-to-east pipelines and tidewater routes would shrink price differentials and protect consumers from political supply interruptions. Alberta's Danielle Smith outlined 9 priority reforms, from unwieldy C-69 reviews to punitive net-zero vehicle targets, and warned that action is really needed. If we don't get rid of these regulations, things won't fly. She pointed to surging private sector demand, 17,000 megawatts of AI data centers, hydrogen pilots, rare earth processing, and said that federal backtracking on net-zero mandates is really the only way to let Canadian innovation thrive. Amid U.S. tariff threats, the premiers stressed global markets beyond America. Ford noted Canada's 57 existing free trade agreements and quipped, "We buy more U.S. products than China, Japan, Korea, UK, and France combined. We don't need to take a back seat to anyone." Moe added that Pacific ports would open doors to Asia, while Smith urged deeper engagement with China on agri-tariffs and critical minerals. While oil and gas corridors dominate, all three stressed that new rails and ports will also boost potash, minerals, agriculture, and manufacturing. Ford concluded, "There's no more time to waste. We'll stand united, take control of our destiny, and build prosperity the likes of which we've never seen." Together, these premiers have transformed a U.S. ambassador's barb into a rallying cry for regulatory reform, border resilience, and a pan-Canadian strategy, sending America one clear message: Canada loves its neighbor but will forge its own path. Thank you for watching. As an independent channel, we don't have corporate backing. We rely on your support to keep going. If you found this video valuable, please give it a thumbs up and leave a comment below. It really helps more people find our work. Thank you so much for being part of our community. Check out the next video on your screen. We picked it just for you.